Hey everybody, my name is Scott. I am a special agent with the South Dakota DCI. I currently live up and work up in Brookings, and my primary focus is the drug investigations. So I was asked to just kind of come down, give a real brief overview of drugs in the area, maybe some things to look for, some signs maybe with the kids, and then also just a lot of pictures of drugs in general, drug paraphernalia, items that people use to ingest the drugs into their body. And then I also just brought a few props. They're kind of a little dated now, but it still kind of gives you an idea of you can just take an everyday device and turn it into something you can keep drugs in. So. All right, so most common drugs in South Dakota that we see, obviously marijuana is going to be number one. That is not going to change anytime soon with the new drug laws coming forward here probably in July. I only anticipate that that will even be greater in our state. Ecstasy, or Molly as it's sometimes referred to, that is a pretty typical college type drug. You see it a lot of college campuses. We've seen it in Brookings, Vermilion. So that's kind of a party drug, a rave drug. You see like the little pills that are stamped with, I mean, whatever, Homer Simpson, Marge Simpson. I mean, it can be whatever the people want to stamp on them. Methamphetamine, cocaine, prescription drugs, and then heroin and fentanyl. So we have seen all of these in South Dakota. We've seen all these in Moody County. We've seen all these in Flandria. So just some real brief 2020 stats, kind of highlighted Moody County. It's kind of hard to see, but so marijuana, 220 grams, and this is what was sent to the state lab for testing. So specific to Moody County, this is based on arrest by the locals, troopers, or DCI. And then just a breakdown of like 2020 statewide drug totals, and this is just for methamphetamine. So you can kind of see where Moody County sits. It's like 29 or 39 grams of meth, 15 arrests in Moody County for the year 2020. 2021 stats, there were no arrests, I believe, in Moody County, and there were no drugs that had been sent to the state lab yet. So then we'll just kind of go through the different drugs. So marijuana, the 5-point star, I mean, everybody kind of knows what that is. That's the typical leaf of a marijuana plant. And then the bud is what people smoke. So effects of marijuana. Oops. So it's going to affect everybody a little bit different. Just with any drug you take is going to affect you differently based on your first time or your 100th time of using it. And if it's the greater the potency of the drug, the different effects that it's going to have in you also. So you can kind of read through those and see, marijuana, kind of the common thing people think of is you're just kind of chilling on the couch, eating a bag of Doritos. So, I mean, it really typically will mellow you out, and some people it'll make you really super hyped up. You can see in there, sometimes you can suffer some paranoid thoughts, and that's probably more for like first-time users or people that are trying different strains of marijuana or higher potency of marijuana. Then they can, it might mess with their brains a little bit differently. So just some pictures I pulled today. So if you see any of this stuff around, kids' backpacks, you find this stuff laying around your house, or you're over at friends' houses and you see this stuff, it doesn't mean they're doing anything illegal. It just means that they might be going down that path, or maybe they actually are smoking some weed. So you can see the zigzags, that's for rolling your own marijuana joints, the baggies, and just all the different kinds of glassware. So this is typically for people that are smoking marijuana. And then obviously the baggies, if you see a lot of baggies laying around, it could be synonymous with someone that's dealing. Probably not going to see this too often, but if you're in doing a home visit or something and you have to, you come across this stuff, this is not dangerous in and of itself, but at least gives you an idea of, hey, there might be something more to this, or maybe some more questions to ask of why they have this. So this is kind of a new one that we're all trying to gather our thoughts around and figure out how to handle it with the vaping and the e-cigarettes. Kind of what we've seen in Brookings, and I think probably the same thing down here, I would assume, is that, yeah, you have the vaping and the tobacco side of the cigarettes, but now they're into using the THC byproducts, or like THC wax or THC oil. And instead of the tobacco in the vapes, they're using that instead. So I know up in our high school in Brookings, they're taking these from kids all the time. So like we're talking, the emerging concern from the e-cigarettes and marijuana use. From a legal standpoint, this is actually a Schedule I controlled substance, so it's a felony if you have like the oils or the waxes. So it is a lot more, it's a worse charge for you if you get caught with this stuff. Where if you just have marijuana right now, it's just a misdemeanor. This stuff is a felony. So again, things to look for if you see this in backpacks, or you hear kids talking about, carts or vapes. Like these are what we find doing search warrants all the time, these little cartridges. So those are not synonymous with the tobacco vape. That's strictly for ingesting marijuana. So another thing that this is prevalent, we've seen it, it's here, the BHO. So essentially what they do is they take all the leftover marijuana and they break it down with a lighter fluid of some sort, and then they get this BHO, which is very potent form of THC. Some terms are shatter or butter or dabs, and just a couple pictures. Like this is a dab, or if you see these little, I guess I kind of think of it like a little makeup or a chapstick thing, like a Carmex size with a lid on it. That's what they'll keep their dabs in. So again, just some things to look for. If you see them alone, it might not mean anything, but if you start putting two and two together, and it might lead you down a path that maybe we need to ask some more questions. Methamphetamine, crystal, glass, it has 100 different names. It's very prevalent in Flandreau, it's very prevalent in Brookings, it's all over South Dakota. Just some different photos. Breaking Bad, everybody was on the blue meth, and it's a thing, people do it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's meth, it's all the same. So just some more pictures. So prices, we didn't really talk about prices of marijuana. Methamphetamine prices are pretty low right now. $20 can go get you a hit of meth, $20 can go get you some marijuana. So, drugs are not expensive by any means if you're using small amounts. If you're getting up into the larger quantities, a pound of marijuana will probably be 2,500 to 3,000. A pound of meth can be 10 to 16 to 20,000, depending on supply and demand. As we didn't talk about like marijuana, it's generally smoked through, a zigzag, they roll it, or they make a joint. They can smoke it out of the glass pipes you saw. They can do the bongs, the bong hits. Meth is consumed a lot of the same ways. The snort, the smoke, they can inject it, they can eat it, they can drink it. But really at this point, they want to get it into their body any way they can.
You can keep going. Sorry, there's just some people.
One in. So effects of methamphetamine, it's a speed or a crank, so it's gonna really amp you up. This is the drug where you hear people staying up for 3 days at a time or 5 days at a time, and they're just constantly going. We run into this with sometimes moms that they're just like, I can't sleep, I got too much to do. So they're using a little bit of that to get them through a day. Right or wrong, that's their decision, but short-term effects versus long-term effects. I mean, personally, I've seen some people that were everyday users when I started this job, and now they are functioning members of society. They've gone through all the treatments and they're doing very well. And on the other end of it, I've seen some people that have really gone down the toilet fast, and they're what you consider a junkie. I mean, you think of movie scenes and junkies. Well, sometimes that happens with these guys. So again, just some visual aids of how you can take this, the light bulbs, glass pipes, and if you get to the point where it's bad enough, you'll start shooting and injecting this stuff. And the reason they shoot it, because then it's like an instantaneous high, and the smoking and the snorting just doesn't do it for them anymore. It takes too long. So now they got to go and get it a different way. Yeah, I don't anticipate you guys will have to see this on people here, but just some things to look for, parents dropping off kids in the summertime, short sleeves, you're kind of just looking for this stuff. So some designer drugs, we kind of hit on this a little bit, like the Molly. You see like up in the top, these are ecstasy pills. This is basically a methamphetamine type pill. Molly is usually in capsules. It's just a powder. They put it in capsules. That you see a lot of this stuff coming over like the dark web, where they're ordering it from overseas or they're ordering it from the East Coast, and they'll just have it mailed right to them. So like this says, that they're trying to get around the existing laws. We see a lot of this too with the THC now, where they're making all these derivatives and they're trying to bypass like South Dakota law and how it's wrote in statute. And designer drugs are very good at this because they're all, for the most part, a lot of these are lab created drugs, so they can basically make them any way they want to. And so if they know the law says this, they can change an isomer or change an isotope, and now it's legal per se. So these are obviously very dangerous, just because they look pretty or they don't sound as bad as a meth or a heroin. They're still very dangerous drugs. You can see like the K2 or the spice. Essentially, it's a potpourri that people are using. We don't see this a lot in the mainstay of society. This seems to really be targeted to like the prison side of things, and I don't really know why, but see a lot of it in the prisons, especially in South Dakota. So just some other pictures, and I mean this is basically ingested the same way that marijuana is. It's smoked, or I mean maybe snorted, but for the most part it's going to be smoked. Just like with any other drug, there's lots of stories on the internet, sob stories of people's kids being tied up into this spice trade and the K2 kick, and it's very deadly. So as with any amphetamine type drug, it's gonna increase your heart rate. You're gonna sweat, you're gonna vomit, you're gonna get the psychotic episodes. It can get to the point where you even stop breathing. So prescription pills, I would say this is probably a pretty dangerous area too of the drug trade. I mean, probably any of us sitting in here can go home and you probably have some sort of a prescription pill in your house, whether it's a scheduled drug or not a scheduled drug. So access to these for the younger generations are readily available. So in South Dakota, there are different schedules as with the federal system. So Schedule 1 is the most severe, which is more of the THC oils, the THC wax, the LSD, the mushrooms, stuff that is just basically not natural. And then you start getting into all the different kinds of pills, the Schedule 2s, the opiates, again, the methylphenidates or the prescribed Adderalls or Ritalin. And essentially they think that's kind of like a prescription for meth, but it's not. So again, just some different schedules. It kind of just keeps going down the list. So I put heroin in here towards the end just to kind of get a feel for it anyway. It's not a very overabundant drug in our state, thankfully, not yet anyway, but it is emerging, and it's kind of following the opiate prescription end of things. And as pill prices increase, that can kind of drive people towards the heroin because heroin is much cheaper. So this is kind of an alarming slide, and it's a broad range here, but ages of individuals associated with heroin use. So you can see that it really tends towards the lower end of the spectrum. So cost comparison, where they can get a dose of heroin fairly cheap versus going out and finding someone with pills. And like I said, luckily we haven't seen this in South Dakota to the extent of other states. And then fentanyl, that is also an up-and-coming drug. I'm sure you've all heard about the dangers of fentanyl. The most minute amounts can cause death. And they're not kidding about it. It's a very dangerous drug. It's a synthetic drug. It's produced by man-made, and it is very dangerous. And we see a lot of that mixed in with the heroin, and now we're starting to see some of it mixed in with methamphetamine. And if people don't know what they're getting, this is what's causing them to overdose. And I threw in a picture of Narcan. I don't know if you guys have that here or not, but Narcan is the reverse agent for the opiates, the heroin, the fentanyl. And if anybody's seen videos of how it works, it is, I mean, you get it in quick enough, it brings them right back. So.
We've had federally, on the federal side, the distributors and dealers out of Chicago that supply to Sioux Falls, and people overdose and die from it. They're just said they got license as a group.
Yep. So what to do now? I put be the police at the top. And I don't mean that in the sense of you act as the cops and make arrests and stuff, but it's be vigilant. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Don't ignore the signs or the symptoms and talk with your kids. It really comes down to just, if your gut tells you that, hey, something might be here, it's okay to ask the questions. And if nothing's there, then great, everything's good. But if there is something there and you need to get to the right people, then at least you have some basis. Hey, this is what I saw, this is what I asked, and this is what they told me. Then you can give that to the authorities. So like Dave said, we work these cases in general, they come from people like you guys that provide tips to the local police. The local police do what they can, and then they come and talk to us, and we try and go up the chain and go after the big dealers. And I've been to Chicago, and we've dealt with people over there on heroin cases, and we're lucky in South Dakota that we don't have it to the extent that those other places do, but it doesn't mean it's not going to come, and we need to be vigilant and stay on top of it.
With the meth usage in South Dakota, we have several cases federally. Inside the house, the pregnant woman is using meth while she's pregnant. Some of those babies have been stillborn, or they haven't taken been made in ICU, and charging parents and guardians of those kids. Just because it's so hazardous to the young kids in the house to be using that. Not cooking it, just using it in the house.
Yep, definitely. And South Dakota's been fortunate. We have that charge where we can charge the abuse of a minor. We actually just did it up in Brookings with a case, and mom was shooting up, and the kids are right in the house, and needles laying all over the place. So things to keep an eye on. So that's kind of all I had on the slides. And then I just brought some props to kind of show you just some hiding places, and just some of the items that they use. You guys are more than welcome to come up and interact and touch them and hold them and whatever you want to do. I know the Zoom folks can't see this, but you can turn on the camera. We could. Yeah. So just some items of the trade. So these are just like hide cans. So it just looks like a normal can if you're looking at someone's bathroom or whatever, but the bottom is just screw off, and then you can hide things in there, obviously. Same with that one. So you can make these out of pretty much any can. Pop cans are really popular to do this too. And like Campbell soup cans, we see a lot of those for some reason. Here's just another highlighter. And it's a working highlighter and everything, but you just pop the end off, and then they have basically a one-hitter or a way to smoke marijuana. Same thing with the lipstick. It just ends up, it's just a little pipe that they can smoke out of. So a lot of these are marijuana devices, but I don't have any vapes. We meant to raid the evidence room, but we didn't get to it.
Break it.
They won't break. So another place to hide things. So now that I want to plug any business, but Rolling Smoke in Brookings, you can go up there and spend $20 and buy all this stuff. So. And just a grinder. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a marijuana grinder, but basically you just put your marijuana in and you grind it up. So just some other things you can look at. And these are just basically detox cleansers. If people want to try and clean their urine before they go and have a urine test, there's all kinds of this stuff out there too.
Specifically for that.
Specifically for that. Yeah. If you ever hear anybody say baking soda bombs, that's what a lot of the people use to try and cleanse their urine. But it is very dangerous, and a lot of people get super sick from it. They try and drink a ton of baking soda and water, and it really messes up your insides. I'm sure these probably do also. But that's just kind of a sampling. You can buy these things at Walgreens, similar to this, just basically an at-home UA test kit. So just things to look for if the kiddos are talking, or you overhear kiddos talking in the playground or whatever, and if you hear any of these terms, just something to kind of pique your interest and maybe ask a few more questions. That's about all I got. Anybody?
I know, yeah. I was like, She said, what's your advice to talk with elementary kids about vape pens?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Vape pens are very common, and it's obviously a way for them to maybe start actually smoking cigarettes. But I think the best approach is to be upfront and honest with them and just explain to them what the basically the disadvantages of smoking vape pens are going to be. It will have the same effects as a cigarette. It'll create that addiction, and they are dangerous too. I mean, there's tons of videos and photos online of vape pens exploding or the battery leaking. So that's a tough question. I think it has to be a similar talk to just any drug, and drugs are dangerous and vape pens are no different. That's it. Any other questions?
Have you ever had to like been interviewing kids like when they've been about their parents and what they've said?
I personally have not. I don't deal with a lot of juvenile cases.
Okay.
So I have not had those kind of interviews. Typically, like the case of Brookings, we will call CPS, and they will come in and we'll deal with the arrest, and they come in and handle the other side of it. So.
Some kids are in the bed facilities and do that, and also
But the one thing with children is they really don't know how to embellish, so they just tell you how it is, and they're going to tell you what they see, and they don't know really the right from the wrong. So, as Dave said, they're going to say, "Yeah, I watched mom stick a needle in her arm, and then she backed out." They're going to tell you just what they observed. So.
We'll see with kids too is along with the drugs and money, kids are being trained for sexual favors for meth, and kids are hurts. It's very so there's traffic and play situations. That moms bring kids to hotel rooms, and as they shoot up, providing them use the children as sex.
It's the ugly side of the drug trade for sure. So a question on Zoom here is asking about basically how we're going to handle the new marijuana laws when they take effect. And the short answer is we're still waiting for direction from our Attorney General's office and our administration. But at the moment, until they take effect, we're just going by what the law is at the moment.
It'll be right here in the back area of the road facility.
Correct. Flanger is unique in that I think right now on the reservation, you can legally possess marijuana as long as you're a tribal member. So I believe. Does that sound right?
Yeah, well, that's what they're trying to figure out, because they're still in the state of South Dakota.
Yep.
There's soccer, as far as that's concerned.
Right.
So federal laws.
There are still federal laws.
Let's be honest, Scott and I favorite.
Yes, it is. I don't see anything else coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else? Great. Yeah, but you guys can come up and look at these things.
Yes, definitely.
Pretty much everything we have. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What?
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I'll just